Hi, everybody. Melissa Klein here, and as we know, and I just wanted to do a little bit of an introduction and talk about drawing the face and the Loomis method, which we're going to be studying under kind of together under a guy named Proko, which is sort of short for his more extended Prokochenko name, and I really admire his way of teaching because he makes it so clear, and I love how he uses his graphics. And what the main thing with the Loomis method is, I can't stress this enough, it's just a nice way to know how to place the features on the face. Because what I've really observed is that a lot of times people kind of will know how to draw a certain feature. Usually it's the eyes, but sometimes it's although a lot of people are complaining about the nose. Like, I don't know how to do how to do the nose. But in a nutshell, if you can get the proportions and the placement of the features, that is kind of half the battle of drawing faces. So many times I've just seen it, and for my own study, have that's been the thing, the big bugaboo. Like, I would say that people sometimes confuse drawing faces well with actually what it is getting all the little different elements together correctly. One thing I did want to point out to you is that the face is a really relatively small area when you compare it to the rest of the head. So to model that, if you take your hand and put it over your face, you will look weird, but but that's about the size. Your hand is about the size of your face. And if you take your hands and sort of go around your whole skull, like, oh wow, so I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like there's 6 hands. 7, whatever, but there's many more. There's 5, depending on how you measure it. That was very inaccurate, I'm sure, but you're talking about your whole head. It has about, 5 times the area-ish of just this little area that we tend to focus on. And I think that's part of the problem with drawing faces. It's also a very interesting time, as we all know, in a creepy way, to be drawing faces, because I used to be horrified at how women were required to wear burqas, or or hijabs, or cover themselves up in various levels, and how they, and now all of a sudden we're all having to wear masks, which is for different reasons, more for scientific, depending on who you ask. It's very hard to know. I don't question wearing masks. It seems fairly logical-ish. But, here we're, as I think all of us, the whole world is kind of dealing with like social isolation and disconnect too. Like, I used to, going to the store used to be kind of a friendly thing. Even if I didn't know anybody, I would often have sort of weird conversations with various people about stuff. And now it's like people are just like, everybody's wearing, half their face is covered, and they're just grabbing what they need and running practically. Or there's this sort of a little bit of a defiance, of people who are like, you notice they're not, they're masked below their nose, and I'm like, mask not there, or mask too low or something. I want to say something, and I don't, because I don't want to become part of the mask police. But there's all these issues around face covering, wherever you stand on that issue. And the other thing too is in just studying skulls, and skulls are such a powerful symbol often of death. And of course, we're living in this weird world pandemic, and studying the skulls for me kind of brings up a lot of issues too about where are we sourcing our skulls from, who were these people, you know, and what kind of lives they led. So kind of that element of it. And yet at the same time, I think about when I was in high school and looking at, you know, we were studying Shakespeare, of course, and, you know, Macbeth, and and it seems like in all the Shakespeare plays, there always was like just a skull handy that you could just pick up off the table and talk to. and that this is as close as I have to a skull, okay? Sorry. You know, and you can't even buy real skulls now. They're all plastic, which whatever. But and yet I remember a long time ago hearing an interview of somebody on NPR, and they had created a book that was like symbols of death around the world. And there was this odd paradox that cultures that celebrate death, like I think about the Mexican Day of the Dead, they are tend to be happier because there's something about having these reminders about our mortality that kind of encourage people to live life more fully, to have more fun, or meaningful, or whatever it is. But so I guess, you know, it's a way of kind of saying like, hey, let's have this. I can't think of historically like kind of a more interesting time in some ways than now to be studying the face. And I also have to say, oh my God, our last two Zoom sessions, I'm still just giggling about them, whether we were doing contour line drawings or we were, you know, sharing. I loved seeing the faces that you guys drew, and the great joy that it was, and creating these little stories around these characters, you know, and how diligent everybody was about like looking up, you know, and like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to do. And I loved how you brought in references and your creativity, and so thank you. um, and I look forward to seeing what you do very soon, and I'm semi proud of myself for getting this out semi on time. I'm kind of not been giving very much time things because I'm like, yeah, there's always seems to be something. That said, also know that, you know, in terms of like when our assignments due, it's like they're done when they're done. I mean, I do try to kind of follow along to, you know, to get the most benefit. But especially for this, where we're dealing with, you know, the first lesson, you know, that we did is what we learned there is going to be just as relevant as the last lesson. And next week, we're going to be getting into doing some things a little bit more with color and mixed media. I've been holding off on that a little bit because I think it just drawing faces in black and white, glorious black and white is a bit challenging to begin with, and you throw color in the mix. But that said, there's wonderful things to be had with skin tones and things like that. All right. Thanks again, and I will see you soon.